Since the beginning of recorded music, Christmas songs and Christmas albums have been with us the whole time. But in 1957, Elvis Presley recorded the first rock and roll Christmas album, with half rock and roll songs and half traditional. Now, most of these Christmas records from this time period, they pretty stay traditional and close to the original versions, and with this high reverence and traditional arrangements, most of these Christmas records pretty much sound the same, strings and choirs. But around this time, somebody was pretty tired of Christmas records being so bland, and they thought, what if Christmas records really had the pop of today's modern hit records? Well, in 1963, maverick producer Phil Spector does just that. He decides that he is going to get the full roster from his record label, Phillies Records, and the Crystals, who had hits with He's a Rebel and No Other Like My Baby, and with arrangements by Jack Nitzsche, and we see Darlene Love with Jack and Phil right there. Darlene is also a member of Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, a vocal trio who had a hit with Zippity Doo Dah. The Ronettes are coming off their big number 2 hit, Be My Baby, and everybody is excited because a Christmas gift for you from Phillies Records is our record of the day today on Another Vinyl Show. Ike Frazier Industries presents Another Vinyl Show with Ike Frazier. Hey everybody, it's your old pal Ike Frazier, and it's that magical special time of year, Christmas time, as they say. And we're going to talk about today what some people consider to be the greatest Christmas record of all time. A Christmas gift for you from Phillies Records. Now here's the 1963 cover right there. And of course this one has the beautiful yellow and red label. I had a blue label one time. And then of course it was reissued in '72 on Apple with this more familiar cover. But in the modern days, this cover has been reissued more than the Apple cover. So all through the 70s, you'd see this cover. But once the 80s rolled around, we went back to the original cover with everybody on there. And it's a great record. This is before Phil Spector descended into alcoholism, madness, and murder. So he's still a good guy, a little bit eccentric and a kind of weirdo a little bit, but he is not a murderer yet. So those are unfortunate events, but this is about Christmas time and just the great record. It's more about the Ronettes and Darlene Love and the Crystals and Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, because they're the ones that really make this Christmas record great. And of course the Wrecking Crew's on there. You can't go wrong with them. And Jack Nitzsche, he's the arranger on this, and of course he does those dense arrangements that Phil Spector loves to do at Gold Star Studios. But it's a great record, and we just wanted to wish everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Maybe we'll get to that other great Christmas record from the King there later. But it's the Phil Spector Christmas record that all records are judged by for Christmas, because it's the first record to take Christmas songs out of the traditional mode and push them into the modern contemporary. So that tradition carries on today with everybody. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If you dig the video, give us a like, and if you want to subscribe and see everything that we're doing here at Another Vinyl Show, we'd love to have you along for the ride. So until next time, it's your old pal Ike Frazier, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. In 1963, July, in fact, Phil Spector is recording the Ronettes' big single, Be My Baby, and he has the great idea, as they say, Christmas in July, to record a Christmas record. So, and we see Phil and Ronnie right there. He is totally ready to get this going. So in August of 1963, just a month later, they already have all the arrangements done. And we see Jack Nitzsche here with Phil and Darlene Love. Now, Darlene was also part of Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, who had a hit with Zippity Doo Dah. And the Crystals, we see the Crystals here. They had a hit with He's a Rebel. And, of course, the Ronettes, as we know, there's Ronnie Spector. They had a big hit, Be My Baby. And we got Hal Blaine at the core of the sessions. And there is some question of whether or not Carol Kay played on this record. She claims that she did, but others say she didn't. She is not listed on the cover. Tommy Tedesco on the guitar there. So many great musicians from the Wrecking Crew played on this record. And we see Bobby Sox with Phil Spector right there during the sessions. Looks like Hal way back there, maybe. Brian Wilson came to the sessions, although his piano playing was a little sloppy. Productions at Philly Records went into overtime to get the Christmas record ready, and Philly's A Christmas Gift for You came out on the very tragic day of November 22nd, 1963. And on that day,
from Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
And while all of that is going on, Darlene Love's single, Christmas Baby Please Come Home, does not chart. Nobody is feeling very Christmassy. But in December of 2022, it rises to number 15. Now, the first pressing of A Christmas Gift for You from Philly's Records, some people believe it is the Blue Label, but the Blue Label was actually in transition at the time, and the Blue Label and the Yellow and Red are both actually first pressings. Now, Billboard magazine in 1963 said that this album went all the way to number 13 in the pop charts. Now, our friendly neighbors up north, Canada, also released The Christmas Gift to You from Philly's Records, and here we see it on the beautiful black label right there. That's a little bit hard to find. Now, in the UK, Phil Spector did not have distribution, so London Records took that over for him. And we see here the cover is altered just a little bit because it's just a Christmas gift for you. No From Philly's Records on there because this is released in England on London Records on the American series. And you can see the beautiful purple American series mono label right there. Now, we fast forward to Christmas of '64, and promo copies of this beautiful EP were sent out to radio stations to remind everybody how great the Phil Spector Christmas record really was. And it had 4 songs on this promo EP for Christmas of 1964, and that featured Sleigh Ride by the Ronettes and The Bells of St. Mary by Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, White Christmas by Darlene Love, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town by the Crystals. And there we see Santa with Ronnie and Phil in '66. Now we fast forward again to 1970 and we cross the ocean to England, and at Apple Records there's a little bit of trouble going on. The new manager at Apple Records, Mr. Alan Klein, decides that he needs to make as much money for the Beatles as he can to show his value and his worth. And after a discussion with George and John, he calls Phil Spector up and says, "Can you come to England and help us get this Get Back record turned into something more sellable?" Well, before he even starts on that, he produces Instant Karma in sessions featuring George and John, and that's a big number 3 single. Alan Klein, of course, has a great idea after that. He's like, well, you know, Peter Asher has quit because he's buddies with Paul McCartney, and he takes James Taylor to California. And then finally the Let It Be record comes out, and Paul is not really happy with the sound. But John and Paul fight over this, and George is like, I think Phil Spector's doing a great job on it, so I am going to get him to produce my album, All Things Must Pass. And George and Phil Spector co-produced that album. Then it's Plastic Ono Band with John and Phil Spector and Yoko producing. Well, now that Apple is really starting to cook now with all these great solo records, they don't have an A&R person. And Alan Klein is like, well, you know what? And he calls up John and George and he's like, well, you guys have got Phil Spector working on everything. Why don't we make Phil Spector the head of Apple Records A&R? And for 1 year, Phil Spector takes that position, and during this time period, he is doing the sessions for John Lennon's Imagine, which George Harrison also shows up for. Then it's off to New York to add strings to the record, and while they're in New York, John says, well, Phil, you're the king of Christmas, why don't we make a Christmas record? And that's Happy Christmas, War is Over. After that, Phil's back in England working with George Harrison and mixing the big Concert for Bangladesh box set. And during this time period, George Harrison's like, well, why doesn't Apple Records release the Phil Spector Christmas record? So he tells Alan Klein that that's what we're going to do. But the Phil Spector Christmas record kind of needs a brand new cover for the 70s. So Apple Records is going to get a session together. And there we see the Billboard pick, because this is a great record. Everybody loves Phil Spector's Christmas record. And here we see the Apple version of it right there. Now, it was released in mono, just like the original pressings back in the day, and here is Phil Spector to talk about that.
A new cover and a new title, Phil Spector's Christmas album. But have you changed anything else about it? Have you remixed it or anything?
No. It's still basically the same, and you don't have your back to mono button on. Why is that? That's a shame. You must have your back to mono button on. You must have that. And you must wear it as well.
Sure.
Back to mono. No, nothing's changed about the album at all, except that it's coming out for the first time on Apple Records in 9 years.
Why has it been so long? Why have you left it so long to reissue it? Because the demand's been there, hasn't it?
Yeah, every year the demand is there, but I've just been reluctant. When we made the record, it took anywhere from 6 to 9 months to make the album. And then when we issued, it was 1963, and in America, that was the year that President Kennedy got assassinated. And I was depressed, and the country was, and no one was in a Christmas mood. And I just never issued it again. Never again. And I just sent out test pressing. Disc jockeys in America wanted it, but there was always a bit of reluctance to, they played it, they loved it, and they played it, but they never knew what to call it, or, if a kid called in and said, how do we get that album? They just never knew, so they played it and went right into a commercial in America. And I've decided now that Apple's the best company to release it on. I've worked with Apple, and I think it's a good time now.
And Apple Records is glad to release the Phil Spector Christmas album. Now in the UK, of course, it came out in its original mono form with this new cover as Appcore 24. And is a popular seller over in the UK. Now in the United States is a completely different story. This is the cover that most people in America know because it's been reissued so many times as Apple SW3400. Now, Phil joins up with Warner Brothers, and in 1974, he releases this in the UK with an alternate cover. Now, this is kind of like him getting ready for the Apple Records cover, and you see he's getting dressed in his Santa Claus outfit there. But this actually came on blue vinyl in the UK in 1974, and here we see the blue vinyl with the Warner Spector label. Fast forward again to 1987, and somehow Phil Spector and Alan Klein are working together again. Alan Klein is managing Phil Spector's catalog and decides that he is going to reissue Philly's records on ABCO Records. And here we see the Christmas ad for all those great records. And the Christmas record was included on the Back to Mono box as well. Now, Sundazed in, I think it was 2008, released A Christmas Gift to You from Philly's Records on this beautiful red vinyl right here. And here we see the red vinyl. That's very nice. I love colored vinyl. Now, Music on Vinyl released it on Snowflake White, and they only released 500 copies. Now, we'll see this beautiful white one has the blue label on it, and that's pretty cool right there. It looks a little bit transparent, doesn't it, since we can see the girls through there. Well, what's the value of these original Phil Spector Christmas records? Well, you might be surprised. Some are pretty cheap, and this record normally goes for about $20, but this is a signed copy by Phil Spector, and we see his autograph down there on Santa's beard. This record on eBay went for an incredible $400 for a signed American Apple copy. Now here we see the Monarch test pressing, and the Monarch test pressing he pretty much used from 63 all the way to about 72 when people asked for a Christmas record, and you can see in the dead wax there the PHLP 4005 serial number or catalog number, and this record went for an incredible $500 on eBay. But still, the top is a stock copy Blue Label. Everyone wants the Blue Label because they believe it's the first. eBay, $630. That's a little bit of Christmas power from the boy wonder right there. And we thank you guys for watching, and we hope you have the merriest of Christmases and the happiest of New Years.